The scream tore through the hallway like a knife through silk. An old man crumpled at the front door, his body limp, the weight of years crashing to the ground. The cane rolled from his hand, striking the marble floor with a hollow clatter. No one caught him. His two sons stood frozen, their eyes wide, not from grief, but confusion. He hadn't seen them in years. Now he arrived at their home with a letter in hand, and collapsed before a word escaped. Blood seeped through his shirt near the ribs. It wasn't an accident. There were no signs of a struggle. Only the silence that follows when something irreversible has begun. The younger son whispered, Is he dying?" The older shook his head slowly, but his voice cracked. He was dead to us already. Neither dared touch the letter clenched in their father's fist. Outside, thunder rolled. A life unloved had returned, not for redemption, but for reckoning. Daniel didn't cry. He just stood there, fists clenched, the silence between heartbeats louder than thunder. All he saw was the man who left their mother in pieces and vanished like a ghost. No apologies. No explanations. Just absence growing fangs over time. As paramedics rushed in, Daniel backed away slowly. "He chose his ending," he muttered. The youngest, Aaron, couldn't stop staring at their father's chest, still rising barely. He whispered, "We should at least hear him out if he wakes." Daniel turned sharply. "You want to forgive this?" Aaron didn't answer. He was still watching the letter. The envelope looked old, like something never meant to be sent, only delivered when regret bloomed too late. Rain kept falling like time refusing to pause. The paramedics asked questions, but the brothers barely spoke. One of them checked the old man's vitals and called out, "He's stable for now." Daniel scoffed. "Of course he's still here. He always shows up when it's too late." The younger medic looked confused. "He said your names before he passed out." Aaron blinked. "He remembered us?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "Doesn't matter, he forgot us when it counted." In the back of the ambulance, the old man stirred. His hand reached again for the letter, but it was gone. Aaron had taken it, but he hadn't opened it. Not yet. Something inside him feared what it might say, and feared more what it might confirm. The house felt hollow after they returned. No words passed between the brothers. The letter lay unopened on the kitchen table, between two untouched mugs of coffee. Daniel stared at it like it was alive. He had a chance to speak. Why didn't he? Aaron sat down slowly. Maybe he didn't want to speak. Maybe he just wanted us to know. Daniel's voice lowered, tired, edged in bitterness. Know what? That he walked away and still gets the last word. Aaron's voice cracked. Maybe he came back because he knew we were already becoming him. The words hit the silence like a wound reopened. For a moment, neither moved. The letter remained untouched. That night, Aaron sat alone. He'd tucked the letter into his coat pocket again. He couldn't bear to read it with Daniel. Not yet. Instead, he stared at the mirror in the hallway, the one that still held their childhood reflections. He saw himself now, older, harder, but behind him, he could almost see a small boy waiting by the front gate, watching the road, waiting for a father who never returned. That boy never stopped waiting. And now the man he became held the words of the man who left. Aaron whispered to his own reflection, "What if it's not forgiveness he came for?" Silence answered, the kind that knew how to wait. Aaron couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but the silence afterward was louder. He wandered into the attic, a place neither brother dared visit since their mother died. Dust clung to forgotten furniture like old regrets. Boxes labeled in faded ink. 1979 his things, letters never sent. Aaron's hand hesitated over one box, then opened it. Inside, brittle photographs, medals, and a journal wrapped in cloth. He sat on the floor, the pages fragile as memory. The handwriting was familiar, angular, tense. His father's voice lived in ink. "Today, I almost went home. I watched from a distance. Aaron waved at every car. I couldn't. Not yet. Aaron pressed his palm to the paper as if the words could feel his touch. He whispered, "You were there?" He didn't cry, but his body folded inwards, like a man realizing he's been searching for something that had been searching for him. Downstairs, Daniel stood in the hallway outside their mother's old room. He hadn't entered it since the funeral. The door creaked open slowly. Her scent still lingered, lavender and something faintly burnt from a lifetime of overcooked meals. He stood there, scanning the shelves, the dresser, the chair by the window, everything untouched. Then he saw it, framed in silver, a photo of their father in uniform, younger, proud. Daniel's fists clenched. She still loved him, he muttered. Beneath the frame was a torn piece of paper. He picked it up, a note in her handwriting. He wrote again. I didn't reply. Not yet. Daniel's breath caught. She knew. His voice cracked. She was waiting too. The rage that had protected him for decades began to falter. In its place, something softer, more dangerous. Grief. The kind that doesn't shout. It just stays. The brothers met in the kitchen hours later. Neither spoke at first. Then Aaron slid the journal across the table. He came back before, he said. He just never knocked. Daniel didn't reach for the journal. He just stared at it. So what? He watched from the shadows while we drowned? Aaron's voice cracked. He wrote about Mom. He wanted to fix it. He just didn't know how. Daniel looked away. Wanting doesn't make a man good, Aaron said quietly, but it makes him human. Daniel finally picked up the journal. His fingers traced the spine. I don't want to forgive him, he said. Aaron answered, then don't. Just understand him. That was harder, because understanding meant surrendering the right to hate. And hate had become armor. Later that evening, Daniel visited the hospital. The hallway was quiet, machines humming a rhythm of borrowed time. He stood outside the room, staring through the glass. His father lay still, tubes in his arms, oxygen mask in place. But his hand twitched, searching, even in sleep. Daniel entered without sound. He sat beside the bed and stared. Minutes passed. Then he spoke. I hated you longer than I ever loved you. He leaned closer. And the worst part is, some days I needed you to stay gone, because it was easier than admitting I missed you. The old man didn't respond, but his breathing slowed, a kind of peace, or perhaps recognition. Daniel wiped his face quickly, then left. He never touched him, but he stayed longer than he planned. Back at home, Aaron opened the letter. He waited until midnight, when even guilt was too tired to scream. The seal cracked softly. Inside, 2 pages, one addressed to both sons. The handwriting was shaking, but clear. You don't owe me anything, but I owed you everything. I failed, not by leaving, but by staying gone. Cowardice wears many masks. Mine looked like duty. I watched you grow from distance. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I tried. I just didn't know how to do it right. Aaron read it aloud. Daniel listened from the doorway, silent. When the letter ended, Aaron folded it with shaking hands. Daniel whispered, he did this without knowing, and still taught us everything we didn't want to learn. The room went quiet again, but not empty, just quiet. Daniel stood in the garage, the one place their father used to spend hours in. The dust lay thick on every surface, but under it, tools hung in perfect order, preserved like a shrine. He picked up a wrench, its weight heavy with memory. Flashbacks returned, a younger version of himself standing by the workbench, watching his father build something in silence. No words, just the clink of metal and the distance of missed chances. He had always wondered why his father fixed things, but never people. Aaron entered quietly, noticing the stare. He was building a crib, he said. Daniel turned. What? Aaron stepped forward. After he left, there's a note in the journal. He built it with no one to give it to. Daniel's jaw tightened. So he practiced love on wood while we broke? Aaron didn't answer. Some truths don't need arguments. They just need time to bleed out. Later that day, Aaron met with Mrs. Holloway, the woman who used to live across from them when they were kids. She had known their father well, too well, some whispered. Her face lit with soft lines and knowing eyes. He came by every Christmas, she said gently. Left gifts on your doorstep. Watched you from across the street. Aaron's voice trembled. Why didn't he knock? She sighed. Because pride ages like milk. Sour and hard to throw away. He thought you'd slam the door. Aaron shook his head. I might have. She smiled sadly. And maybe that was punishment enough. On her mantel sat an unopened present wrapped in paper faded with years. He left that here once, told me to give it to you when it felt right. Aaron took it with trembling hands, unsure if now was too late or just in time. Daniel watched an old VHS tape Aaron had found buried under boxes. The image flickered, grainy, nostalgic. Their father's voice came through first. One day, maybe you'll find this. The camera showed a workbench, the half-built crib, and him, 20 years younger, eyes tired but trying. I don't know how to fix the damage, but I keep thinking, if I build this, maybe I'll remember what it's like to make something that matters. He smiled sadly. Maybe one of you will have a son someday. Maybe you'll teach him to stay. Daniel paused the tape. His reflection stared back from the dark screen. For the first time, he didn't feel anger. He felt like a son who'd been waiting for words that never came. Until now. He whispered, you were trying. Just quietly. Aaron finally opened the present. Inside was a wooden toy, hand-carved, shaped like a boat. On its underside, for the one who never stopped waiting. His breath hitched. He remembered the nights he sat on the porch as a boy, watching headlights hoping one belonged to his father. He saw me, Aaron whispered. The pain wasn't gone, but now it had form. It could be named. Grief, yes, but also love, buried under shame and silence. He placed the boat on the mantel and sat beside it like a relic keeper. In that moment, he didn't feel like a child abandoned. He felt like a man recovering something sacred, proof that absence wasn't always neglect. Sometimes it was fear dressed as distance. The next morning, Daniel returned to the attic. This time he wasn't looking for answers, he was looking for pieces. He laid out the journal, the photographs, the toy boat Aaron handed him. He placed them like puzzle parts on the floor. His hands moved slowly, not to organize but to understand. Each object held a wound, a whisper, a weight. Finally, he spoke, not to Aaron, but to the silence. I thought forgiveness was a door you opened for someone else. But maybe it's one you walk through alone. Aaron stood in the doorway, hearing every word. Daniel didn't turn. He didn't need to. The silence between them had changed. It no longer shouted. It listened. The hospital called at dawn. He's awake, the nurse said. He asked for both of you. The brothers arrived together. No plan, just presence. The old man looked smaller, shrunken under white sheets. His voice was faint, but he forced a smile. You came. Daniel stayed near the wall, but Aaron stepped closer. We read the journal, and the letter. Their father's eyes watered. I should have come back sooner. His voice trembled. But I thought if I stayed away, you'd hate me less. Daniel spoke. It didn't work. The old man didn't flinch. Then, I deserve that. Aaron sat beside him. Why now? Why come back? The old man stared at the ceiling. Because the silence got louder than my shame. For the first time in years, they all shared a pause that wasn't filled with anger, but honesty. It ached, but it was real. I wasn't alone when I left, the old man said. The room froze. Daniel's breath caught. What do you mean? Their father hesitated. There was a girl. She She was barely older than you two. I didn't love her. Not really. I was just running. But she got pregnant. I didn't know until later. Aaron whispered, "There's another?" The old man nodded. "Her name is Ruth. She's your sister." Silence shattered like glass. Daniel stepped forward, eyes burning. "So while Mom raised us alone, you played house somewhere else?" "No," the old man said weakly. "I left them too." His voice cracked. "I've always been good at leaving." Aaron sat stunned. His hands shook. "Does she know about us?" Their father's silence answered everything. She didn't, but she would. That night, Aaron sat on the porch, the letter clutched in one hand, his phone in the other. He had found her, Ruth. Same city, just blocks away, all these years. He hadn't dialed yet. Daniel joined him in silence. After a long pause, Aaron asked, "Do we have the right to disrupt her life?" Daniel exhaled. "She has the right to know what he never gave us, truth." Aaron nodded, but his thumb hovered over the call button like it might burn him. "What if she hates us?" he asked. Daniel looked out into the dark. "Then we'll understand her better than anyone else ever could." Aaron pressed the button. It rang. Once. Twice. A voice answered. "Hello?" He froze. Then softly, "Is this Ruth?" I think we might be family." They met at the park. Ruth stood beneath the oaks, arms crossed, face unreadable. Early 30s, sharp eyes that held more questions than trust. Aaron introduced himself softly. "We're not here to cause pain, just to share what was hidden." Ruth listened, silent. Daniel stepped forward. "He's in the hospital. He asked for you." She blinked. "Why now?" Her voice was calm, but cold. "Because he ran out of later," Daniel said. She laughed bitterly. "That sounds like him." Aaron reached into his coat and handed her the letter, the one their father never sent. She opened it slowly, hands trembling. As she read, her eyes shifted. Anger, sadness, and something else, recognition. "I used to wait at the gate too," she whispered. The brothers said nothing. They didn't have to. Ruth sat beside the hospital bed the next day. Their father opened his eyes and saw her. "You came," he said. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she opened the same letter and began to read it aloud. Every word slow, measured, as if making him taste the truth he buried. He wept, quietly. Ruth paused and said, "I don't forgive you, but I needed to see if your eyes would flinch when truth met them." And they did. He nodded, lips trembling. "I wanted to be better. I just kept running from the mirror." She stood, folding the letter. "Maybe you finally found one." As she walked out, Daniel and Aaron stood in the hallway. Ruth didn't stop. She simply said, "We share a story now. Just don't make it end like his." Then she disappeared down the corridor, leaving the silence fuller than it had ever been. Daniel stood alone in the hospital chapel. He wasn't praying, he didn't know how. But the silence in that small room wrapped around him like something ancient. The stained glass cast fractured light across his face. He gripped the journal tightly in both hands. The words inside had haunted him for days. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," the last page said. "It's remembering without rage." He whispered, "I don't know how to do that." A nurse entered quietly. "He's asking for you." Daniel hesitated. "Does he know I'm coming?" The nurse nodded. "He keeps saying your name." Daniel closed his eyes. Years of silence, of pain, of stories never told. He wasn't ready. But maybe being ready was never the point. He took one breath and walked out. Their father lay still but alert. Daniel stepped inside. He didn't speak at first. Neither did the old man. They stared at each other, two generations of hurt compacted into one room. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Why did you write everything, but say nothing?" His father closed his eyes. Because words are easy to write, but they burn when spoken. Daniel's voice cracked. Then let it burn. The old man opened his eyes again, wet with regret. I failed you. Daniel stepped closer. You did, but I'm tired of carrying your failure like a birthright. Silence. Then Daniel placed the journal on the bedside table. I'm leaving this here, so you can see your truth before it becomes your last. The old man reached out, hand trembling. Will you stay? Daniel paused. I don't know, but I came, and that's more than you did. Aaron returned later. The air was heavier now, like the room knew time was shortening. He pulled up a chair. His father smiled faintly. You always reminded me of her. Aaron replied softly, You mean Mom? The old man nodded. She was strong where I was weak. Aaron looked down. She forgave you, in her own way. His father chuckled bitterly. She was better than me in every way. Aaron took a long breath. No, she just stayed. That's what made her strong. Then, his voice lowered. I'm staying too, not because you earned it, but because I won't let your ending write mine. His father wept. And this time, Aaron didn't look away. He let the man cry. Let him break. Because some goodbyes need to be seen. The nurse entered gently. He doesn't have long, she said. Daniel and Aaron stood side by side at the foot of the bed. Their father looked up one last time. Tell her, I never stopped loving her. Aaron nodded. She knew. The old man smiled faintly, then turned to Daniel. And tell yourself, you're not me, you stayed. Daniel's lips parted, but no words came. The old man exhaled softly. Then silence. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when the last story finishes. The brothers stood still. No tears yet. Just stillness. Like the soul was giving them one last moment to decide what this ending would mean. Neither moved, but both knew it had ended the way it needed to. Honest. Flawed. Human. They buried him 3 days later. No grand eulogies. No long speeches. Just a box, a prayer, and the weight of a name carried differently now. After the ceremony, Daniel placed the journal inside the coffin. Let him take the truth with him, he said. Aaron laid the toy boat beside it, so he doesn't forget the boy who waited. Ruth came too. She stood back, saying nothing. But as dirt began to fall, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the casket. I didn't know you, but I knew what it felt like to need you. She looked at her brothers. Now I know I wasn't the only one. The three stood in silence as the grave filled. Not broken, not healed, just honest. And in that honesty, something close to peace began to grow. Weeks passed. The grief didn't leave, it just changed shape. Aaron found himself returning to the attic more often, sitting with the journal, sometimes reading, sometimes just holding it. He began building again. Not from pain, but from understanding. Wood gave him peace his father once sought. One evening, he began shaping a new crib. Daniel found him there, sleeves rolled, hands sawdust covered. You're building one? Daniel asked. Aaron nodded. I'm going to be a father. The words stunned the room into reverence. Daniel's voice softened. Does she know? Aaron smiled faintly. Not yet, but I want to tell her with my hands before I tell her with my words. Daniel nodded, stepping beside him. Then, let's make it stronger than the last one. Together, they began. Not for their father. For what came next. Ruth opened a small package at her doorstep one morning. Inside was a photo. Her as a child, unknowingly snapped across the street, sitting at a porch with a book. Her father's writing faint on the back. She reads like her mother. Beneath it was a letter from Daniel. No apologies. Just truth. We may never understand his choices, but we all paid for them in silence. I think it's time we stop paying. Ruth sat down on the porch steps, the photo trembling in her hand. Her eyes closed, and for the first time she pictured him watching her, not as a stranger but as someone too broken to knock. She didn't smile, but she didn't cry either. She just whispered, "You missed a lot. But maybe this I'll keep." Daniel stood at their mother's grave. He hadn't visited in years. The marble had aged, vines crawling around the edges. He placed fresh flowers down gently, then sat cross-legged, like he used to as a boy. "He's gone," he said aloud. "And I didn't forgive him, but I also didn't hate him at the end." He touched the dirt softly. "You carried all of us. And now, it's our turn." A breeze passed through the trees, soft and slow. Daniel looked up, tears brimming. "I see pieces of you in Ruth. And in Aaron. Even in myself. Maybe we're finally ready to let go of how you suffered, and carry how you loved instead." He sat there for a long time. Not to grieve, but to listen. Aaron finally told her. They sat on the living room floor, his wife laughing through tears as he placed a hand on her belly. "A boy," he whispered. "I think I'll name him after my father." She paused. Are you sure?" Aaron nodded. "Not because he was perfect, but because I want to raise him better. I want his name to mean something new." She held his hand tighter. "Then let's make it mean love." He smiled, tears in his eyes. "And patience, and showing up." In that room, something shifted, not in the air, but in the future. Because this child wouldn't inherit silence. He would inherit story, and the wisdom of those who broke before him, and built anyway. One evening, all three siblings met again. No occasion. No ceremony. Just dinner. Laughter wasn't loud, but it was real. Ruth brought a photo album. Daniel brought wine. Aaron brought his blueprints for the crib. They spoke of music, memory, childhood, avoiding the cracks in their shared past, not to ignore them, but because the cracks were no longer where they lived. As the night ended, they sat on the porch in silence. Ruth looked up at the stars. "I used to think broken people made broken families," she said. "Now I think, maybe we just needed time to become unbroken together." Daniel raised his glass. "To the silence that taught us." Aaron finished. "And the love we're learning to speak." Time passed, as it always does. But the house remained, old but alive. The attic was no longer just a place of dust and memory. It was a workshop of beginnings. Aaron finished the crib, hands steady, heart clearer. He carved a name into the wood, Ely. As he ran his fingers over the letters, he whispered, "You'll never wait at the gate." Below, Daniel painted the nursery, his strokes careful, almost reverent. Ruth arrived with books and laughter. No one said it, but everyone felt it. Something broken had not been fixed, it had been transformed. Not erased. Not forgotten. But rewritten. The house was still haunted, but now, by warmth instead of regret. Some ghosts linger not to hurt, but to remind us how far we've come. Aaron stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Eli sleep. His breath was soft, chest rising and falling like waves that no longer crashed. Daniel joined him, holding a framed photo of their father, not from youth, but older, weary, reflective. "We don't have to hang it," Daniel said. Aaron took it. "No, we do, but not for him. For Eli. So he asks who this man was." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And what will you say?" Aaron smiled. "That he taught me to be present by showing me what absence costs." Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. Then he gave more than he took. And for the first time, Aaron nodded without flinching. Legacy, he realized, isn't just what's left behind. It's what you choose to carry forward. Ruth visited the cemetery alone. She brought no flowers, only her father's sealed military pin. She knelt, placing it gently against the headstone. "You wore this like it explained everything," she said. "But you never explained yourself." She sat back on her heels. "Still, you gave me brothers, and through them I found parts of you that mattered." Her voice grew softer. I'm not forgiving you, but I'm no longer living in the space where you left me. The wind stirred. Trees above rustled gently. She smiled faintly, brushing hair from her face. I'll tell my daughter about you someday, and I'll tell her that becoming whole means naming the cracks and still choosing to stand. She rose, lighter, not with relief, but with release. At the family table, Ruth read aloud from the journal. Her voice was steady, each word chosen like a seed. Daniel listened with his arms folded, eyes soft. Aaron held Eli in his lap, the baby tugging at his collar. He wrote, I was not a good man, but I wanted to become one, and maybe wanting was my beginning. The room held that line like a prayer. Aaron kissed his son's forehead. Ruth closed the journal. His story isn't a warning anymore, she said. It's a mirror, and we get to decide what we see. Outside, rain began to fall, but softly, like blessing instead of burden. The past didn't knock again. It simply stood outside, quieter now, watching. Night settled gently. The house breathed with new life. In the crib, Eli stirred, then fell back asleep. In the hallway, the journal sat on a shelf between photo albums, no longer sacred, just understood. And on the front porch, the three siblings sat beneath a quiet sky. Daniel leaned back. You ever wonder what he would have been like if he stayed? Ruth answered, I wonder what we'd be like if we hadn't had to learn the hard way. Aaron nodded. But we did learn, and that's ours now. A long pause. Then Ruth whispered, sometimes the only way to forgive your father is to become one worth forgiving. No one replied. But in the silence that followed, something ancient finally let go, and peace at last felt earned.